Hello and welcome back, PlayBASIC Coders. Been a big 2 weeks for me. Attempting to build the updated demo from the project. We use a series of build tools that were written a long time ago, and the building was working, but when I went to test certain examples, actually initially it wasn't working at all. It took me a few days to even track what the hell was going on with that. Eventually, it turned out to be it was generating an infinite loop inside itself. Yeah, not good. And I thought, great, that's all fixed. I can deploy this thing and now deploy demos. And I went to run this old example, which is what, almost 20 years old now. In case you're not sure what this is the forest blast. My sort of joke to myself about what would Thesius XIII look like if it was written today. Well, written in 2007. Yeah, it just had more visuals, I guess. Yeah, had some stuff on screen. There you go. Whatever. But this wasn't working. This at all, in fact. The other one that wasn't working was this one. I don't know how old this one is, but it's got to be 20 years old. This is the old Wolfenstein demo. It's in the example pack. It's been there for 20 years. I say that because people still ask you. They'll email you, where's that demo? It's like, it's in the example packs, dude. Just download them and find them, you know. This was doing some weird stuff where none of the walls would appear and just in the built demos. And as I tried more examples, some worked perfectly and other ones didn't work at all. The more modern version of that is this one, which is this version is actually raycast. But this version worked. A bunch of other stuff didn't work, you know. The problems, well, so many problems, it really just boiled down to this tool that built the retail runtimes and the demo had some problems in it, and some of those problems were they're not really present in the runtimes. One was like it had a pre-solve ability where it had the wrong order of operations, and there's a handful of expressions that use this stuff to sort of help reduce the size of the application. It strips out a bunch of redundancy code as well. But because it's been such a long time since a runtime has been made, yeah, it just didn't want to work. And then it was just like, oh, great, here we go. It's actually taken me 2 weeks to get it to this point, which sounds nuts. Yeah. Sounds nuts. We've got it's a different version of this demo. It's the combination of the sort of the grid demo from the other day. It's the rotated camera stuff, if you're not aware. It's the newest feature in PlayBASIC. We haven't got single thing in here, but we're pretty close. Most of the render primitives can be drawn through a rotated camera. So things like maps you can do as well. It's a better example for maps. So this is a variant of the old Mario demo. One slight new change is that when you bump into things, the screen scrolls, or rotates actually. Making it very weird to play. It's kind of a weird idea, but you know, it's just what it is. Bit of that, bit of this. Oh, that's good. Oh, terrific. I just hacked together a bit of a short level from the tiles that were in the demo already. It's not attempting to make a remake of this. No, I just took the old demo and added rotation to it. And then I realised I needed a longer level because that demo was only one screen of world. But this code's been on the forum for forever anyway. A few different camera modes. Old 2D mode, so you can just run it the same way. Rotated mode. The axis of rotation is the center of the viewport, by the way. There's perspective mode as well, but that really won't have any impact because the characters are quite close to the camera anyway. So all that stuff works. I've hit try to build an executable. You get, nah, can't do this from the Learning Edition. Look, I've been asked a bunch of times recently about when's the retail version going to go back on sale, and still a maybe at best at this point. One of the issues with doing this for the old version in particular is that you have to update the key system, and then that introduces new problems like, updating keys for old users. There's not many of those people who are active, but what happens when you do this stuff is that they come out of the woodwork and like, oh, I need an updated key. It's like, okay, great. It's just time consuming. And given the last 2 weeks have been getting this to work, I mean, it didn't work. The problems were so bizarre. I wasn't sure what was wrong with it at one point. And it actually has taken 2 weeks to get this, well, not quite 2 weeks, I guess. What are we now? Thursday. I started on the 1st or the end of last month, and was trying to get this up and running, and it just didn't want to work. What was interesting though is one thing I did do with it was in the build process that builds the demos, and I had a profiling mode to that because initially it would start but then would crash very soon after starting for just an inexplicable reason. It was like it was getting stuck somewhere. So to find that meant sort of walking through this legacy code, which is not much fun. I thought, well, what if I just have the build tool embed sort of debug breadcrumbs automatically for me. That's what I did actually. So every time I called the function, it would dump a bunch of stuff to the console. So it ran unbelievably slow because spewing out text every time you're calling a function to do it in your program to do something, what you might not realize is even before you get to run the first line of code in your program, it's doing a bunch of other stuff as well. This is one of the newer demos too. It's like an update of Plain Blaster. And it's just using the rotated camera. Just swapped over a helicopter character and chucked in some. I think actually the asteroids were there already, so the scene makes no sense. I mean, yeah, I get it, but it looks like a fish more than an Apache or something. But yeah, he walked off the world there, by the way. But yeah, I mean, the issues with trying to find the problem, or problems there turned out to be. One was, since the last Learning Edition was built, I don't know how long it is now, I reckon like 15 years or something. maybe not that long, but something like that anyway, like 12 years or something. So what the builder does, like if we're talking about PlayBASIC code here, right, you can have these kind of optional expressions. So you can do things like, oh, well, I have some constant defined if debug mode equals, I have a variable, called debug mode. This tells the compiler to optionally include that thing based on some environmental variable here. That's great, but sometimes it's kind of annoying too. So the builder has these kind of instructions hidden behind comments. Every project I've written from the assembly days onwards, where you'll have like sort of comments in here. This is whether it's, this might mean only this code here only exists in the demo or whatever, right? If it's not the demo, it just strips it out. That's great, but sometimes you have function calls and debug stuff in things, and common functions you use that are literal, that it doesn't really know are literal, that you want it to insert the values for. Like colors are a good example of this. If you have like RGB something, well, that's creating one possible outcome, isn't it? So it's a literal function or a constant function. So we could go, constant, my color or something. My color equals this thing, yeah. And that's valid code because this can be solved at compile time. Now, some of these things are like that, and some of them are not. And it's kind of expensive to call these functions sometimes. So the preprocessor has a bunch of, not just for colors, but string processing and all these kind of things built into it. That was done a long time ago, and so much has changed since then. That was causing it to have major conniptions. One of the weird ones I noticed that was actually causing the Wolf 3D and those other demos to break was that the preprocessor does a bunch of, it's not a compiler, but it skims through the source code and it looks for these known patterns. It's pretty dumb. So if we give it this line here, it would break it down into the individual words, an assignment operator. It doesn't know what RGB is, by the way. A bracket here, blah, blah, blah. And we pass it to the solver. We go, have a go at solving this thing, and if you made any changes, we'll output that changed version of the code in place of what it was originally. So I can have things, debug functions, and there is actually stuff in it like this. Like, I think it's like, what is it? Debug log or something. Print functions where they've got strings in them. This thing does something good. What it used to, what it does in the modern versions is it knows that this particular function is not for export. And goes, oh, cool, I can rip this dude out. Looks at the brackets, goes up here, blah, blah, finds this thing up here. Now, getting to the problem that was happening before is it would get lost in certain, if I had a function call in here that had brackets in it, I don't know what you would do. Off the top of my head, I have no idea. String, whatever, value or something like that. It's probably a bad example, but the pre-processing phraser that would calculate these things here and would see this and go, okay, I found this particular thing and it has a literal statement, so I can strip this at compile time. But it would skip over these extra functions here, these extra bits of statements here, because I think that one was where it wasn't getting the correct end value for the brackets or something, and it was causing these expressions to, they still compiled generally. Occasionally it was putting out just garbage. That's great because you want to see, oh, hang on, why is this thing not even building now? Whereas it used to build fine. Because you find these newer expressions where different things have been called and done and whatever. Yeah, that was one of the major ones actually, and that was happening only a handful of times across the code base, but it happened at the right time to break certain. It's like a cascading problem, you know. So when this is broken, something else that relies upon that function to operate properly was failing, and it actually caused things like arrays not to work. Very weird, because this is in compiler land. So in a compiler, if it's looking for an array name and finding an incorrect array name as if it was the array that the user required, then that's what was happening. And a bunch of other things too, like the order of operations was wrong too. So I'll give you an example. If you go, if you have 100, divided by 2, and then you shift it by 2. Hang on, we're inside this other project. Let's not do it in there. Just to give us an example of what I'm talking about. Now see, from this we can infer what the order of operations is. So I'm saying it's 200. So yeah. So we've got 100 divided by 2, so 50, and then shifting it up 2 bits is the equivalent of multiplying it by 4, so that's okay. Now in my pre-process pass, I think it was shifting operators were broken here. It would do the shift and then do the division. I think it was an AND actually. Yeah, I think it was doing something like this. This is like a week ago. This particular one was faulty, and so it was shifting. It was like multiplying this by 4 and getting the wrong bits, and so the code still compiled and worked, but the bits it was masking out were the incorrect ones, and there happened to be enough overlap, but it still kind of worked, but then would fail on certain expressions. It was like, what the hell is going on, Anyway, long story short, we have a working Learning Edition. Still testing it, of course. It sort of came to life yesterday once I realised which part of the problem was causing it, because I've literally been through the whole build-up going, what's causing what? It's a needle in a haystack. You've got this big program, you're trying to work out, why is it doing weird things? So I ended up, to find these expression problems, I ended up getting it to dump the working in the build process and generate this very large text file, and then skim through that text file to try and find results that sort of stuck out to me, the things that didn't look right, and didn't take long. Found a few straight away, so that was good. So once I realised that was Another issue, I cleaned that up a bit, made it a bit more liberal, a bit more strict. It was too liberal before. Because we're working in source level too, it's not compiling the code or transpiling it. It's looking for known patterns, pulling them out, or removing those patterns completely. We don't want them in the runtime. If it removes function calls that I don't want in the final runtimes, then it's also smart enough to remove those functions entirely. So, because those functions become orphaned, there's no call to them, so it just gets rid of it. Like for example, if you had a function down here, hello world or whatever, hello world. Now, depending on your language, in PlayBASIC, if I compile this, that hello world function exists. It's in part of your program. But there's nothing calling to it, so it's actually an orphaned function, isn't it? If I have a call to it, now it's part of the execution and I can't remove it. So what the build process does is it runs through it, it maps out what functions are available. As it discovers calls to those functions, it just bumps a counter, that's all it does. Anything that only has one occurrence of itself, in other words, appears as a declaration, gets hoisted, rips it. It could pass over many times to do the same thing, but it doesn't, and even that's very useful. Anyway, get back on track. So the plan with this was to release builds of 1.6.5, the current build, as Learning Edition versions to the public. Because really we're not getting enough testing from people who have old retail editions. We're getting no testing from those people at all. So we'll put it in the public, and the process works the same. If you find bugs, you report them on the forum. That's what you do. But you'll also have access to the same features as everyone else. I think the only limitation really is that they won't have any runtimes with it, so you can't build a separate executable and share it around separately. No. That's a bridge too far at the moment. But this gives you all of the working features that I use every day. It's not 100% what I want it to be, but we're closer. Anyway, dudes, that's enough for me. I'll see you next time. Bye.